Thank you for waiting. My name is Bob Miller, manager of the Roll-to-Roll team with IT Supplies. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. This webinar is the third session in an educational series that we are calling RIP Week. Today we are joined by Kevin Rowe. Kevin is the Technical Solution Manager for GMG. Before we get started, I would like to mention that all attendees will be muted throughout the webinar to reduce background noise. During the webinar, we encourage you to make note of any questions that you may have, and at the end of the presentation, we will hold a question and answer session. At that time, feel free to type whatever questions you have in the presenter's chat box. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Kevin. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Bob. Much appreciated. I wanted to say thank you for having us today and the opportunity to present our solution. So thank you to IT Supplies and colorHQ. Just wanted to start real quick with just a company background. Not sure if everybody's familiar with GMG. GMG is a company been around for about 30 years, a little over 30 years. You can see some of our values that we live by here, basically: passion for color and product quality, honesty, togetherness. I think if you speak with anybody that works with GMG, we're just generally easy to work with people. Kind of giving a background of GMG, it was founded in 1984 by Mr. Ewald Weining out of Germany, and has since been owned by his two sons, Robert and Jorg. Still privately held, very profitable company. We kind of gained our tooth, or cut our tooth, in graphic arts by color managing iris inkjet printers back in the early 90s. So the brothers saw the need for that, developed a software for that, and we've been driving and color managing inkjet devices really since the beginning. A couple claims to fame for proofing. We are the de facto standard for proofing systems for gravure. Essentially all gravure printers in Europe particularly are pretty much required and rely on GMG proofing for their contract proofs. In about 2002, there was a worldwide expansion, expanded into the US, UK, Japan, and China. Currently worldwide company. We'll take a quick look at where our subsidiaries are located. We've got over 11,000 systems installed worldwide, so we're not just this brand new startup if you haven't heard of GMG. So of course, compliant with all industry standards, and as I mentioned, over 30 years of experience. So since 1984, 32 years, as a matter of fact, in the graphic arts industry. Just giving a quick look at the presence that we have throughout the world, as far as you take a look at the headquarters in Tübingen, Germany, then offices in the UK, of course, myself located in Boston, Massachusetts. That's our Americas headquarters, and we have representation throughout US, Canada, Latin America as well, of course. So that was kind of all I wanted to touch base on as far as the company background, just to give you an idea of who we are. The product, or the RIP, that we're looking at today for driving large format devices is called the Print Factory, powered by GMG. And just to give you an idea, GMG is great color management, great at color managing digital devices, whether it's inkjet or toner or regardless of solvent, UV, doesn't matter. We were able to really hone in, keep those machines fine-tuned and calibrated, and give you the color that you want. We were not our strong point was not workflow for large format. We acquired a company called Print Factory and then integrated our color management into their workflow solution. We call it, people call it a RIP. It's RIP week. Sure, we'll say we're a RIP, but we like to consider ourselves a workflow solution rather than just a RIP, because there's a lot more to it than just the rip. The rip is one component, but uh, there's quite a bit more to it. So what is so Print Factory is a software suite of products, and I'll talk about the different options or the different tools available to you in that suite of products. We can go to virtually any printer that you can think of imaginable. It's over 1,000 printers that we can physically connect to, that we support. Really any cutter, Kongsberg, um, Sumo, Futoba, print and cut machines, and the whole solution, regardless of where you want it to be installed, is very versatile. You can install any of the one components on a Mac, a PC, a mixed environment, perfectly fine. So some of one of the big differentiators, I guess, or the big components is, of course, the GMG color management. So high-end, GMG, again, high-end contract color, integrated our algorithms and theories into Print Factory, the workflow solution that drives the devices. We guarantee the same color on all of your printers in your shop, anytime, every time, via our calibration methodology. Um, it's very easy through our wizard tools to calibrate the machines to get repeatable, consistent, and expected results. As part of the whole GMG color management piece, what's included and not an extra thing, it's more of a byproduct of getting the best quality and the best color, is ink savings. We developed years and years ago GCR UCR for inkjet printers like Iris or Epson or HP in order to combat things like metamerism. Using less CMY and more black resulted in not only a little bit of a sharper image look, but also less color differences in different lighting conditions. So that was developed by us years and years ago. We've carried that technology into the large format color management piece, and as a result, a typical ink savings, if you're using a competitive product, a typical rip out there, you can see up to 20% bottom line ink savings, less ink usage using our color management integrated with Print Factory. So the suite of tools that I've been speaking or alluding to is the editor is essentially the job preparation tool that we use to prepare files for large format output. We're adding folds, bleeds, grommets. We're doing a quick error check, last minute edits. We can do some photo editing. I'll show you a peek at that as well. So once you're done with preparing the job as far as scaling and sizing and folds, bleeds, grommets, whatever you need to do, you can use the layout tool to tell it, if you want it stepped and repeated, if you want a number of copies, if you want to scale it, whatever. That's part of the layout tool. It's part of the suite of products, as well as the RIP. Once you hit submit, the job goes to the RIP and then gets processed. The RIP does all the number crunching away from the editor, which is where you're doing the job preparation. The calibration tool has the GMG calibration wizard built in and the profiling wizard built in. So you're getting high-end color management via the calibration tool. And of course, part of the whole solution is driving not just the printers, but any cutters that you have. If you've got a Futoba cutter, if you've got a Kongsberg cutter, a Zunt. As a matter of fact, if you're cutting with scissors, there's tools in there that allow you to lay out your jobs with easy cut in mind, the least amount of cuts that you're going to have to do manually, getting the job done quicker. So if we take a look at the different types of projects or different types of products that you may produce a flag, a billboard, a banner, maybe a point of purchase display, regardless if it's a JPEG, a PDF, a TIFF, EPS, any file format really, we can open those jobs in the editor, which is the tool for job preparation for large formats. Looks and feels a bit like Illustrator. Tools are very similar, familiar. You can open that job up in the editor, and really quickly and easily prepare those jobs for final output. So if we take a look here at a typical job, here's a flag. I'll give you an idea of what that looks like inside the editor. This is the editor. Again, looks kind of like Illustrator. When we prepare the job, we always set the size at 100%, so there's really no size limitation. We have an error checking tool that allows you to check for errors in the file, like in this case, white text set to overprint, and we can also fix that error pretty quickly. It's kind of, and this is really real time too. Once your operators get used to it, I just paused it because it's going too quickly for me to explain it. But once your operators get used to it, this is real time. You're not seeing any progress bars. So in this particular tool, I'd like to point out, I can easily quickly add a fold, define the size of the fold. In this case, it's just on the left side because it's a flag. I can choose my bleed and how big I want the bleed, and I can decide to mirror the bleed or stretch the bleed. I can automatically add grommet marks. So the finishing tool is a very powerful tool to prepare your jobs for output very quickly and easily. I don't have to go into Acrobat or Illustrator in order to do this. Next thing I do is I choose the printer, I choose the media. I also choose if I'm going to a flatbed cutter, which cutter I'm going to be using and what material is going to be cut. Now I open up the layout, I tell it the media that I'm using, I can tell it how many copies I want. In this particular case, we're going to add automatic cut marks, so it's going to automatically create the cut marks for you. We'll put registration marks on here as well as a barcode. We hit submit, and again, real time, there's no progress bar because really what's going on behind the scenes is there's no scaling on the operator's side inside the editor, which is typically on a Mac workstation. He prepares the job, he hits submit, the file actually gets copied to the RIP along with XML instruction that the RIP carries out all of those tasks that require the heavy processing. So once you hit submit, it goes to a separate RIP, and actually the RIP could be on the same workstation as the editor, but typically you'd want it on a separate RIP where that does all the processing so that the operators that are preparing jobs for output can work on the next job. For example, here's a billboard. If you need to do tiling, whoops, stepped ahead a little bit here. See if I can go back. So for tiling purposes, again, similar scenario, we're going to choose our printer, our media. We're going to set the job to 100% size. In this case, it was built at 10%. So I'm going to, or maybe it was 20%. I had set it to 500% size. In order for me to tile, I just double click the tiling tool, tell it how many I want horizontally, how many I want vertically, where do I want my bleeds, in this case the top and the left. We'll hit submit. I'll add Fotoba cut marks, which is completely integrated into the layout tool. Hit submit, and again it copies the TIFF, in this case a PDF file, over to the RIP with XML instruction to carry out all those tasks. So instead of opening it up in Illustrator, trying to figure out, I need a 1-inch bleed and it's 20% size, how much bleed do I really need? We do all that at real size in real time. The next job here is a point of purchase, or is a banner. Let's say we need to create grommet marks all the way around, and this job was prepared for offset. So we're going to crop it to the trim, and then we're going to minimize the size to the actual work area. We'll choose the printer, the cutter. Again, we'll scale it to the size that we need. In this case, I think it's 1,000%. We'll go back into the finishing tool, add folds. We're going to add a frame around the fold to tell the operator where it needs to be folded. In this case, we'll do a stretch bleed. We add our grommet marks. What's cool about the grommet marks too is if I like my grommet marks 12 inches away from each other, I type in 12 and it automatically completes the math to get as close to 12 as it can within that particular area, horizontal and vertical. We'll say OK, and that immediately shows you what the RIP result is going to be. It shows you the fold, it shows you the bleed, it shows you your grommet marks. Same scenario, we hit submit, tell it how many, choose our media, tell it how many copies we need. What we're going to be using in this case, again, it's a Fotoba cut, maybe it's an I cut, hit submit, print job goes through the RIP to the printer, cut file goes through the RIP to the cutter, In this case, in the case if you have a flatbed cutter with a barcode reader, you can scan the barcode and the cut job comes up, etc., to cut that job and make sure that you're cutting the exact right job that you want. Here's a job that's a point of purchase display. It has unique cut lines in it. So if you're not doing rectangular cut lines, we can easily handle those. It doesn't have to be named anything specific. We just choose our printer, choose our cutter, then we can select our cut file, define it as a cut layer, tell it in this particular file, this is a, and then there's a couple kiss cuts or crease cuts that we want to add as well. So we add another layer, assign that to the crease cut. And then when I use the layout tool, I still have my barcodes and my registration marks automatically added, tell it how many copies I want. And in this particular case, we want to save media, so we choose a true shape nesting, which positions the images that aren't exactly positioned in optimal mode in a rectangular fashion. It positions them for least amount of media usage. So to maximize um, to have you use the least amount of media that you absolutely have to. So in the end, basically, we kind of have the editor where we have a tool for every purpose. In this case, we've got our operators preparing the job on the left here. We submit them to the RIP. The RIP is doing the number crunching. The operators are just preparing jobs, no progress bars on the operator's machine, and then the RIP sends the file to the printer and or the cutter if necessary. Included or as part of the Print Factory solution, the workflow solution, we also have Manager, which is a cloud solution where you can log in through the cloud and access all of your printers in your facility, see what jobs have been run during the day, how much media was used, how much ink was used. You could do a cost calculation as far as ink usage and media usage. It also backs up all of your color profiles and your settings. In case of hardware failure, you can restore those from the cloud. You don't have to worry about backing those up locally. So we kind of think of it as a dashboard for your production. If you've got one printer, that's fine. You can keep an eye on exactly what's going on that one printer. If you've got 10 printers and 4 in one facility, 4 in another, and 2 are in another, no problem. Launch Manager, it's going to show you all of your devices, and you can get reports through all of your devices, regardless what physical location that they're in. We also have an API integration that we can implement. So if your front-end systems are doing more and more, as your business grows, job tracking is becoming much more automated. We can help you along with the API that's included with the software to further automate the output of your work. At the end of the day, what we are trying to do and what we think we've accomplished is we want to help you finish the job quicker, get the job out the door quicker. From being assured that you're getting the best color, the most consistent color across any devices, or the most consistent color on one device, that's a huge time saver. Number 2 is preparing jobs, and we sort of claim up to 50% time savings in job preparation, which I think is, in a lot of cases, an understatement. It may take a seasoned operator in Illustrator 20 minutes, maybe 40 minutes to prepare a job for output, wherein the editor, you can do it in typically 2 to 3 minutes, which obviously allows the operator to move on to other tasks. So with that said, I kind of wanted to just take a quick peek. I want to do a time check here. I have a few more minutes. So to kind of give you an idea of the different options for Print Factory and how it works, is this particular customer is an example of a customer where they just have one printer and all of the different components are installed on one PC. We can take in any file format, drop it into a hot folder directly into the RIP for true automation for really redundant, simple tasks for printing. If you need to do any job preparation or if you want to do pre-flighting, you can take your files, open them up in the editor, and then submit that to the RIP for number crunching. And of course, the profiling tool to allow you to make sure that the machines stay consistent and you're getting the color that you need and expect, and your customers expect. We'll take a look at a medium-sized customer. In this case, they've got 5 printers. In that case, we're able to expand upon your business. We're going to grow with you. From an operator standpoint, we'll take a look at the editor. We'll take a look at the editor here. If I'm ready to print a job, it doesn't matter how many printers I have in my facility. As my business grows, from an operator standpoint, they don't care where the RIP is. They don't care if I've got 10 RIPs. They don't care if I have 1 RIP. I see all the printers in my shop, and I'm preparing jobs in the exact same manner. So I don't have to train somebody on this RIP or that RIP or this cut software or this color management software. Everything's all done within the same application. So I can open those jobs up in the editor. I can add additional editors if my workload needs more than 1 editor. You can add an editor. Same with adding, a RIP. As a matter of fact, it's as many RIPs as you need is included. And then all the number crunching goes to the RIPs and drives the printers. In this large customer example, this next one, we see in this case they have 5 RIPs and 4 editors driving 13 printers and a cutter. So as your business grows, we grow with you. We're going to be able to, you can purchase an additional editor and an additional driver for a printer, and away you go. Nothing else has changed. Kind of giving you an example of some of the integration. Here's the editor. This is the tool that we use for large format job preparation. So the first thing that you should notice when you're in the editor, unlike Acrobat or Illustrator or Photoshop, it's not showing you what the RIP is going to do with the file. So if you have transparent objects in there, overprinting objects, it's not showing you what's happening. Within the editor, what we're doing is we're displaying the ripped result. We're using the same DLLs to display the TIFF or the PDF. We're using the same DLLs that the RIP uses. So right off the bat, just opening the file is pretty much a pre-flight check. So we're going to see what the RIP result is right off the bat. Very big differentiator versus opening up an Acrobat or Illustrator. We're seeing what we're going to get. The editor is a full-blown PDF editing tool. So if I have the right fonts loaded, I can do font edits. It's not gonna, you're not going to do reflow. It's not going to do reflow or kerning, or well, can do kerning, but it's not going to reflow the text. It's similar to Acrobat, but I don't have to open it in Acrobat. I don't have to open it in Illustrator. I can do that right in the editor. Any text changes. If I need to do color changes, I can select my object. Bear with me. Select my object, and I could change the color directly within the software here through the color tool. Additional tools that we have is we have an indicator here as to what type of objects are placed. So this is if you take a look here, we've got a black raster object, so it's basically a grayscale. We've got a CMYK object, here's another CMYK object, and we've got an RGB somewhere either underneath or embedded in here. Here's a duotone. So it's a good troubleshooting tool to find out what is wrong. So if you printed the job and something went wrong, you can come in and analyze the job to see exactly where it went wrong. Now, one thing we don't do is photo editing. So but we do actually integrate pretty nicely with Photoshop. So if I needed to do a correction here, this is a typical PDF file, I can go in and choose to extract the image. If I need to do some editing to that, we'll just save the original copy of the image. If Photoshop's not launched, it automatically launches Photoshop for you, opens up the image where you can make your changes, and as soon as you make your changes and save, it updates the PDF. So in this case, I'll just do a typical, let's see, option M, a typical, we'll do a adjustment, color, and maybe we need to do some cloning to fix these hairs that are showing up here. We'll fix that. fix it over here. As soon as I save that image, it updates the editor, and now I'm ready to submit the job for printing. Um, and then to sort of reiterate the power of the finishing tool, how quickly and easy it is real time. If I need to add folds, bleeds, grommets, or even crop the job, we can take a PDF file here, we'll scale it, and so we'll do a quick scaling of 1,000%, and notice no progress bar. Now in this particular case, I need to add folds for the banner, because I'm going to fold it and put some grommet marks in it. So I'll add a 2-inch fold. I can choose a frame around it. In this case, we'll do a magenta dashed frame. I can do a dot frame. That's fine. It's just kind of showing you a graphic here. It's not going to be that large. Don't worry. My bleed is not going to be as big as the fold. It's only going to be 1.5 inches. I have options for my bleed. I can choose no corners up here if I don't want the bleed in the corners. My grommet marks, I like 1 inch from the edge of the fold, and I like my grommet marks in this case 10 inches apart. So I'm going to just type 10 and let the software do the math for me. And if you see, it's scaled at 1,000%, added fold, added bleed, added the grommet marks. We hit submit. We add a automatic cut path to it. Add the barcode, registration marks. Away it goes to the printer and the cutter if you have one. So I think at the end of the day, again, what we're trying to do is help you finish the job quicker. One other final point, well, not final point, but final example here is we saw that tiling tool. Along with the tiling tool included is you can print out a report of how the job is tiled. So here's that billboard we saw on the video. On every tile, there's a tile label underneath the work that gives you the tile label number. So from an installation standpoint, you can include the mounting report to go along with the job, where it shows you the label and gives you an image of what the tile looks like and where it needs to be placed in the work. So kind of at the end of the day, again, we are looking to finish the job quicker, give you high-end color management, consistent results, day-to-day, week-to-week. If you've got multiple printers across all your printers, across all your facilities, as well as the professional job preparation tools to make sure that your job preparation and ripping times get decreased, along with the included ink savings.
Excellent,
So Bob, I
thank you.
think that's my dog and pony show. I hope I ran out okay with time.
Yeah, you were fantastic. So thank you so much, Kevin. Great information. At this time, I want to go ahead and open the group for questions. So please take a moment now to type your questions into the chat box. While we wait for the questions to appear, I would like to once again thank Kevin for sharing his great information with the attendees. I know that everyone now has a better understanding of how GMG can help streamline their business and increase profitability. Let me also take a moment to just introduce you to a little bit about IT Supplies. Our printer lineup here at IT Supplies includes latex and flatbed printers by HP, solvent, DTG, and dye-sub printers by Epson, aqueous printers by HP, Canon, and Epson. Other products include color measurement equipment and profiling solutions by X-Rite, Barbieri, and Teshcon, as well as light booths by GTI and Used. On the service side, IT Supplies has joined forces now with colorHQ.com to offer more knowledge and training when it comes to color management. Our recently expanded offerings include on-site color management support and G7 certification. As a thank you for attending this webinar, we would like to make a limited time offer to you on color measurement equipment by X-Rite. For the remainder of this month, we are offering special discounts on all I1 products. In addition to these discounts, Kevin and GMG actually are offering an additional discount to any customers looking to upgrade their competitive solution. Now, let's get to the questions. One of the questions that I have here is we have a customer who's running Onyx and would like you to just take a moment to differentiate your solution from something like that, or probably Caldera as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure, that's a pretty common question, I suppose. I'd like to say I'm an expert in Onyx or Caldera. I'm not. From what our customers tell us, what's the biggest differentiator that they see on day one is the color management, the ability to get really pleasing color, you know, this common color appearance across devices, consistent color. It's really hard to explain or visualize through a PowerPoint presentation. But really that's a huge differentiator for us, is the color management capabilities. Number two is the ability for us to grow with your we're more of a, instead of a silo where we have one rip where it drives one or two printers, and you kind of go over there and prepare it a certain way to drive this printer, you prepare your jobs over there. We have the whole workflow in mind, all the way up to the manager in the cloud to oversee your operation anywhere with an internet connection. The editor is able to connect to any one of your printers in your location, or even if you have multiple locations, and see every single printer. The RIP and the job preparation being separated allows your operators to really move through jobs at a much quicker pace than preparing them in Illustrator or preparing them on the actual RIP itself. So I think those are the three big things: the color management, the expandability, the overseeing in the cloud, that kind of sets us apart from the other RIPs, if you will.
Excellent. We have another question just about GCR. And can you just quickly explain some of the advantages in the way that you perform GCR?
Sure. So that's really how we, there's a couple different ways that we do the ink savings, and I think that's what the question is alluding to. Number one is the ink splitting. A lot of devices now have light inks as well as dark inks, so the way you split the inks has a big effect on ink usage. So the way we're splitting the inks really has an effect. Then number two is our separations, the way we do our UCR, GCR. So we're doing GCR. GCR is gray component replacement. In an Apple, the gray component might be cyan. We'll reduce cyan, replace it with black. There's undercolor removal, which is more of a neutral area removal. So we'll remove CMY from gray areas, replace it with black. Then we kind of have our, we've combined our own UCR, GCR settings. We're not just using something out of Photoshop. Again, it's sort of been tried and true and developed over the years, driving inkjet devices and fine-tuning it to give better color results. And what do I mean by better color results? Well, in that red apple, you have cyan as the dirty color, if you will, or the gray component. So by reducing that cyan and replacing it with black, you tend to see a bit of a sharper red, a bit of a cleaner red, so thereby producing a better result. And as I mentioned earlier, using less CMY and using black instead gives you more consistent color on inkjet devices in different lighting conditions. So
not only that, but that's also where some of that ink savings that you mentioned comes into play, right?
exactly, precisely. So as a byproduct of the GCR, UCR that our own proprietary GCR, UCR that we're using, we're saving up to 20% ink from a typical competitive RIP.
Great. And now I have one important announcement. At this point, we're concluding, but I do want to let you know that Due to a scheduling conflict, we are having to swap Onyx and EFI tomorrow. So tomorrow is supposed to be EFI, but Onyx will be presenting, and then on Friday, EFI will be presenting. So please make a note of that for the future. And that actually concludes our first joint webinar between GMG and IT Supplies. I'd like to thank Kevin for your help in coordinating this event, and I hope everyone is going to walk away more knowledgeable about GMG and what it can provide.
Well, let me just
Yeah.
thank you, IT Supplies, as well as everybody else that came on to take a look at our product. It's much appreciated. Thanks, Bob.
Oh, you're very welcome. And please don't forget to go ahead and contact your IT Supplies representative about the fantastic savings that we discussed earlier, both on the GMG offering an additional discount for customers looking to upgrade their competitive solutions, as well as the i1 devices. Again, we are also a Barbieri Technology Center, so if you have textile that you're looking to profile, we have the ability to do that as well. Thank you to all our attendees. You have been tremendous, and we hope that you will join us again tomorrow as we continue this webinar series. Take care and have a great day.